The story opens with an intense and shocking premise. The narrator, a member of a mysterious agency, is confined to quarters and facing disciplinary review after a fateful interview with a supernatural entity known as Sena. Sena is a perpetual child with extraordinary abilities. Her blood can heal wounds, reverse aging, and even bring the dead back to life within certain limitations. 3. She has been in the custody of the Agency of Helping Hands for over a century. While they claim to protect her, they also exploit her powers, using her blood to generate wealth and extend the lives of select individuals. Her brother, Ara, is a terrifying chimeric creature. Once considered useless to the agency, he has been the subject of multiple termination attempts, though he now resides in a specialized containment cell. The narrator's interview with Sena reveals a dark and haunting past. Sena recounts her origins as a runaway slave, fleeing into a forest filled with supernatural horrors alongside her beloved brother. 6. The forest was a place of nightmares, home to monsters and demons. Among them was a lightning-struck tree that whispered sinister offers, a cannibal who dismembered his victims, and a witch who granted wishes at a terrible cost. Despite the terror of their surroundings, Sena and Ara found a fragile refuge. They avoided capture by slave catchers, surviving on the fringes of a world that wanted to exploit or destroy them. Ara, however, suffered deeply from the trauma of their past. He experienced hallucinations, believing his body was being consumed by bark, and he struggled with obsessive cleanliness rituals that only deepened his suffering. Sena, though young, possessed a wisdom beyond her years. She longed to ease her brother's suffering, but her powers could not heal his mind, only his body. One fateful morning, she stumbled upon the aftermath of a gruesome act. A mangled corpse lay on the forest floor, its body savaged and incomplete. A small, injured dog guarded the dead man. The creature was fiercely protective, attacking Sena when she got too close. In the struggle, Sena's blood mixed with the corpse's decaying flesh. To her horror, the man stirred, his ruined body trying to speak. The resurrection was incomplete. His body was too broken. In his final moments, he asked Sena to help his dog before Ara arrived and ended his suffering. This encounter deepened Ara's fears. He knew that if the wrong people discovered Sena's powers, she would be enslaved, or worse. Their lives became more desperate. Ara's mental state declined rapidly, and Sena became more determined to find a solution. A figure named Ami appeared, one of the forest's few benevolent beings. With his blindfolded eye that saw the future, he warned Sena of the dangers that lurked nearby. Ami introduced Sena to magical bees whose honey had healing properties. He helped her treat her wounds and those of the injured dog, but he also warned her about the cannibal and the witch. The witch could grant wishes, but she was as dangerous as the monsters she harbored. Despite Ami's warnings, the idea of a wish took root in Sena's mind. If the witch could grant wishes, perhaps she could heal Ara's mind. Meanwhile, Ara's condition worsened. He scrubbed himself raw, convinced that his skin was turning to bark, and spiraled into fits of despair. Sena sang to him every night to soothe his pain. His favorite hymn, "What Wondrous Love Is This," became their ritual of comfort. One night Ara broke down completely. He begged God to help them or to let him die, his suffering too great to bear. In his hysteria, he ordered Sena to run. This was the first time he had ever told her to leave, and she knew he was serious. Sena ran blindly into the forest. She did not know where she was going, only that something was calling her forward. She found herself before the lightning-struck tree. The whispering voice greeted her, offering her its usual bargain, her eyes for visions beyond imagining. But Sena had no interest in visions. She had one goal: to find the witch and make a wish for Ara. The tree did not stop her. It merely watched as she set off toward the witch's hidden lair. Sena reached a decrepit plantation house, hidden deep in the forest. It was eerily quiet, yet she could feel unseen eyes watching her. The house was filled with glowing crystal balls. Each one contained an eye, harvested from the witch's victims. The witch finally appeared. Her presence was cold and unsettling. Her voice filled with knowing malice. Sena stood her ground. She declared her wish for Ara to be healed, to be free from his madness and pain. The witch considered the request. She made no promises, only asked for a price in return. Sena knew her blood was powerful. If the witch demanded it, she would give it, but only if she kept her promise. The witch's expression twisted into something unreadable. She laughed, as if amused by Sena's boldness. She made her offer, a single crystal ball. It would contain the answer to Sena's wish, but she had to choose wisely. Sena reached for a crystal. But before she could touch it, the witch whispered something chilling. "Are you sure you want to know?" Doubt crept into Sena's heart. What if the answer was worse than the suffering they already endured? The witch's laughter echoed in the house. The room began to twist, reality shifting around Sena. Somewhere she heard Ara screaming. His voice was filled with pain and rage, and she knew something was terribly wrong. Sena bolted from the house. She no longer cared about the wish. She only cared about getting back to her brother. When she returned, she found him transformed. The magic of the forest had twisted him beyond recognition. He was no longer entirely human. His body had been reshaped, his limbs replaced with those of animals, his face mutilated beyond recognition. Despite this monstrous form, he recognized her, and she recognized him. He was still Ara, but something inside him had changed. He no longer spoke of fear or pain, only rage. The next day they left the forest together, but they were no longer just runaways. They had become something else. Their next stop was the world of men, a world that had enslaved them, beaten them, and tried to break them. Ira! Sena knew what would happen next. Wherever there were slavers, there would be blood. The legend of the abolitionist's hound was born. Ara and Sena became figures of terror to those who profited from suffering. Their vengeance was swift and merciless. They tore through plantations and slave markets, delivering retribution with inhuman fury. And in the end, they became more than just myths. They became ghosts, legends, and nightmares, an eternal force haunting those who thought themselves untouchable.